ọmọ Ìjẹ̀bú alárẹ̀ mi ló ní kí n máa dé dandan bóyí kí mi ga ọ̀rọ̀ lágbájú mọ́ mi. Máa bá ṣẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ ọmọ Yorùbá nìyẹn ọmọ Yorùbá kàkà àǹkádùn rẹ̀ ọmọ Ìjẹ̀bú alárẹ̀ mi kẹ́yìn ló má fi dìbò ọ̀bẹ mọ́lẹ̀. Ẹ̀yin lọ́mọ onígbò máa ń dé mádémádé ẹ̀yin lọ́mọ onígbò máa wọ̀ o. Igbó máa wọ̀ gbàjọ́jì ò gbọ́dọ̀ wọ àjòjì tó bá wọ̀ bẹ̀ abẹ̀rẹ̀ ní bọ́ra. Ẹ̀yin lọ́mọ náwó òyìnbó tó dé ìgbà tó yìnbó dé o owó náà dẹ́kun pọ̀ sí o lórí kí mi ga sáwà ní bàbá. Ìmìjà àwọn ní bàbá ìmìjà àwọn ní bàbá àdáńtọ́ àtòpèrè gidi ìmìjà àwọn ní bàbá àwa là ń gbé tò lárugẹ jẹ́ ká jọgbọ́ o ìmìjà àwọn ní bàbá àfúnjàfẹ́tọ̀ ilẹ̀ wa fẹ́tọ̀ ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ìmìjà àwọn ní bàbá ọmọ Òdùwà ni wá o. Écoute ces lunettes mais aussi à tout mon baba we bring you one closer to your doorstep. Afẹ́fẹ́ tó fẹ́ o tó kàn yóò lára ni. Àpèrègèdè Olódùmarè ló fún wa gbogbo ayé ẹ̀gbọ́n àwa ní bàbá o. Ẹ máa bọ̀ wá ẹgbẹ́ polówó ọjà ni wá o. Òtútù alágbèdá ní òtítọ́ làgbèdá ní. Àti sọ̀dálẹ̀ àti sọ̀rí kẹta. Àgọ́tàn àkópẹ̀lẹ̀ kẹ̀kẹ́. Koiki Media, we bring you one closer to your doorstep. Koiki Media is around to be most latest. Is around to be most latest. Ladies and gentlemen, ẹ̀múkálẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹ̀fẹ̀ tí yẹ bọ́ ètò lókoòdùdókò. Ladies and gentlemen, ẹ̀múkálẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹ̀fẹ̀ tí yẹ bọ́ ètò lókoòdùdókò. Koiki Media is around to be most latest.
Ọjọ́ òní ọjọ́ tó lápẹ̀rẹ̀ gidi gan-an ni fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá tàtà. Kó orí ni ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ọba ti kú ọ̀tá ìbáyọ̀ wọn ní alákọ̀ọ́rí ọmọ ti lọ wò ó èyí tí wọ́n rò yíyẹ̀ lólúwọ̀ ọba ńlọ kúkú sẹ́. Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Ìgbòho ṣàṣẹ́bẹ̀ lọ wà ọ̀já máa dúpẹ́ Olódùmarè ọba òkúri. Tí ọba ti dàbí wèrè fọ́dọ̀ òní ó tó pé ńkọ́ kí lọ fẹ́ wá láàrin àwọn ọmọ adarí wọn gan. Tàbí tó ọba ti dàbí igi ọmọ láàrin ìgbẹ́ kí lọ máa ṣẹ̀dá òfin òfin ọ. Ọjọ́ máa dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ alágbẹ̀dẹ àyànmọ́ ọba tó fi ọ́ dára tó dùn. Ọmọ Adéyẹmọ o ìwọ náà kọ́ Olódùmarè ọba ní kí ọ lárugẹ. Sunday o.
Ẹ̀sọ́ mo dúpẹ́.
Máa gbọ́ ó ti gbogbo olùgbọ́n máa dẹ́gà máa ó dé wọn mọ́lẹ̀ pátápátá wọn ò lè mí mọ́ ó ti kún wọn láyà jẹ́ wọn ò lè sóge ọ̀sẹ̀ rúbà wọn ọjà wọn láyà wọn ò lè mí fín mọ́ ó ti fi ògbójú lọ́fọ́ igbá oró ní èyẹ dànù. Wọ́n máa dẹ́gà máa pọ̀ wọ́n bá tiẹ̀ ọmọ ọkọ lóògùn ọmọ àlè ìwọ náà bí bàbá dojú dé àṣìlù bí ọba ṣe sí ẹjẹ́ afọ kí ní bẹ nínú ọ̀gán ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ti dún mọ̀wúrú bí ọ̀pani kọ́ pani bí ọba ní pani kó yẹ dún mọ̀wúrú mọ́ o. Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ó ti di bí àná yìí yé ẹjẹ ọmọbẹmọ ewé kókò tó bá lè bí ọmọ bẹ́ẹ̀ tó bá fẹ́ fọyà kó máa fọyà gbèrègbèrè sàǹgbọrọ máa fọkù ẹni bá wọ bẹ ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ti di bí àná yìí káàkiri ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Ìgbòho ṣá yé orí ìlà pé ọmọ Yorùbá àtàtà ọmọ ọkọ níyàwó ó ṣẹ́wó bẹ́ẹ̀ lọmọ bọ́ọ̀sì ìwọ lọ pa Gàmbàrí nípa ìsìn Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ọ̀pá Gàmbàrí nípa ìsìn ọ̀pá ọjọ́ ìṣúná pọ̀ ya onítọ̀ ọmọ ẹ̀kọ́ mọ̀ wá. Sunday Igboho sà pẹ̀lú àwọn bàbá rẹ lọ òròlú ọmọ tẹ̀láwù ọ̀lẹ́nilé mo sùn lẹ́ẹ̀kan ọmọ àjàtẹ̀ yẹn lẹ́yìn sílẹ̀ àwọn bàbá rẹ mo dẹ́lu mo dáhàrin òde wọ́n di méjì bàrẹ̀ ta àrùn méjì bàrẹ̀ tàgàdà yín ó di méjì bàrẹ̀ gbẹ̀dínlógún ó kan ilà àárọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ní kókó ilé wa tàgàdà nínú bí àwọn rẹ̀ ọmọ gbẹ́dọ̀ ọlọ́kọ̀ ilé ìṣòwò àkọ́níṣẹ́ ọlọ́kọ̀ ilé ìṣòwò ìgbàlẹ̀ ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Sunday Igboho sàmà tó ogun ní nánilógún ogun ní nánilógún ogun lónìí ilé àárọ̀ ogun ni wọ́n fi jagun gbẹ́gbẹ́jẹ́ bó gùn ọ̀jẹ́ ẹjẹ́ ànínláwọ́ lóògùn ọ̀nà Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Igboho sà lónìí ilẹ̀ Yorùbá gbòmìnira dandan ni máa wá gbọ́ o àṣẹ lọ́dọ̀lọ́dà yìí o ìlànà lọ́dùnmọ́lẹ̀ ni wọ́n máa lù ọmọ Adéyẹmọ o dákun mọ́ làwọn oníṣẹ́ ẹbí ẹ̀tọ́ kálukú mọ̀ fi dùn wọ́n orí kálukú ló gbé ọdẹ kò tó dùn wọ́n á máa gbọ́ o gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá àtàtà ń tẹ́wá lóye ẹja fọwọ́pọ̀ ká gbé ẹni tó ń wá fi sẹ́ ká gbé lárugẹ gidi ni ẹ̀mí jù wọ́n wọn ò dùn ẹjọ́ òrodò lọ sí ìbá méjì bọ́ o ẹni tó ń wá fi sẹ́rán ọ̀gá tó sí ẹni tó fi ra wọn Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ló tiwa akọni tiwa akọni jagunjagun ọkùnrin tààrà lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ kẹlẹ́ ọmọ Adéyẹmọ wọn a máa gbọ́ wọn fẹ́ ṣàdúrà kan fún wọn ni ẹni tó bá ní kó òkú ní kékeré kó máa fọwọ́ àdáwọn síra wọn wọ́n ní kàkọ́ máa ṣe ara ìdúkò dànù ìmọ̀jọ́ ìmọ̀tú ayọ́yẹ́ pọ̀ ní kú lọ́wọ́ ọmọ gbá kékeré tó kékeré ìdáwọ́ ilé ọmọ gbẹ̀yìn àgbẹ̀dẹ òsì pàtàkì òní gbúrú òdòkó tẹ̀ máa gbọ́ àwọn bàbá rẹ tó ti wà nínú ìgbé ìdájọ́ wọn àmọ́ fọwọ́ tí ọ̀gẹ̀gẹ̀ ni àwọn alágbára jagun tí wọ́n lè jagun ṣáájú ilẹ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n mọ fúlọ́ọ̀tì ọ̀gẹ̀gẹ̀ ni kó o dúwà ọlọ́fin ọba àkàlà lásán àjàkà àjàngàtìlẹ̀ ẹ̀fọ́fọ̀tọ́rí anáfọ́kúnlá òun náà lẹ́rú ọmọdékùnrin ìsábà aborílá aborí kòkó alùpùpù bàbá àkútù ògèdèǹgbé ẹgbẹ́gbùngbùrù olè jẹ́sà ṣàgbọ́. Mbọ́n ṣàkọ́ tí mọ́ọ̀gùn làyà wáyé náà ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Igboho sáńpolo tí pẹ̀tùpẹ̀tù tiẹ̀ ṣe ọ̀gbárùgbàlárúgbó onúgbòlò rí tó òkun lẹ̀yà ọ̀sẹ̀ pààyàn kẹ́ni ẹ̀ máa ń dè bàbá rẹ lọ òrùkàtàrí gbàgbà kẹ́ni ẹ̀ máa ń dè bàbá rẹ lọ alárúgbó parúmọ́ Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ní oṣù ògbó ní gbangba Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ó ti dìbò bọ́ọ̀lù ó ti wà lókè ẹni ẹ bá ní ọjà kọ́kọ́ máa kú ni máa gbọ́ ọ tó orí má bẹ̀rù ọ̀tẹ̀ mọ́ ó rí ní gbogbo fùrùfùrù labalábá tí wọ́n ń dìbò lẹ́kùn Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ Igboho sà ó rí bí wọ́n ti ń wo sọ àfíìsà máa gbọ́ ọ jẹ́ gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá àtàtà tó bá lóye àkọ́dá ayé ọgbọ́ ọmọ Adéyẹmọ ní ẹgbẹ́ àfọwọ́tì àti ìdẹ́bi tó lápẹ̀rẹ̀ ẹgbẹ́ àfọ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ èmi dúró ẹ̀wọ̀ òsùnmí kò lè gbé wa débi kankan fa àkọ́dá ayé ọgbọ́ ẹgbẹ́ àkọ́rọ́pọ̀ ká di ẹni tó ń wọ́pá tó sẹ́ni lárugẹ ni ẹ máa gbọ́ oní bọ́ ìyẹn ṣe wọ́n lọ fara òní ni igi igbó sórí tọ̀ wọ́n dìgbẹ́ ẹ̀rí ni àwọn àgbàlagbà wọ́n ní bí orí bá dúró tọrùn inú dé ìrọ̀tọ̀tọ̀ gan ni Sunday ọmọ Adéyẹmọ yéé máa bá ọjọ́ òní ọjọ́ burúkú tó lápẹ̀rẹ̀ ni ṣùgbọ́n àwọn tí wọ́n ṣerú lú ẹ̀ wọn ò lè mú jẹ́ ẹ̀ má ṣe pé ṣùgbọ́n nu rẹ̀ gbogbo nǹkan ọba tí wọ́n padà pọ̀ ìmọ̀lẹ̀ thank you àrò ọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ gbogbo nǹkan ọba tí wọ́n jẹ́ àrò ọ̀rọ̀ mọ́ àwọn tó mú kọ́tò.
wọ́n ní pé ènìyàn ti jẹ́ ọlọ́run ọba wọ́n ní kò lè pọ̀ sí ìbò àmọ́ wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́rẹ́ bàbá bá mi sí. wọ́n ní bí ó sì àwọn wípé kò lè pọ̀ sí ọ̀rọ̀ sí wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́rẹ́ bàbá bá mi sí.
We're getting there, and I say good afternoon. We're talking about culture. Wà la fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ lé lórí àfẹ́jẹ́ kó pẹ́ púpọ̀. We have 60 minutes fún ètò ti ọ̀sán yìí.
Cost of fuel has gone up. Food and other prices have followed it. Households and businesses struggling. Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there's not.
Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu ó náà rò pé ọ̀nà míì máa wà àbọ̀ kò rún rò bẹ́ẹ̀ àṣewọlé ẹ̀kọ́ sí.
ọmọ Ìbàràpá lápapọ̀ ẹ̀jẹ̀ adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àti ọmọ Yorùbá lápapọ̀ kílé kókó ẹ̀mí àbọ̀ ẹ̀bá nǹkan mọ Adéyẹmọ Chief Sunday Adéyẹmọ Ìgbòho orúkọ ńlá tí ń jámọ̀ láyà bí àrá orúkọ tó ń dẹrù bó lórúkọ gan-an ọmọ Yorùbá ẹ má sọ̀rọ̀ torí pé wòrà a kò lè fojú kégbodò láyé títa ríro lẹ̀dá kọlà wúrà tó máa dán àlànà kọjá dandan o ọ̀wọ́n irin ní má bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọ̀nà ẹ̀dá kan lè ṣì wà lọ́nà mọ́ ẹjẹ́ àfìmọ̀ṣàn kan ká lè débi re ẹjẹ́ àjọ gbárùkù ti Sunday Ìgbòho ṣá ọmọ Ìgbòho mọ̀rẹ́ nílùú Alágbàdo Òde ọmọ Atapẹ̀tẹ̀ wọnú omi ọmọ dèdèrè wodò sànyà ìsànyà ò rẹ́ràn bàbá yín láàrin ìdí omi kò sí náà kán sí yín lẹ́nu ọmọ òkúta mẹ́ta òkè Ìgbòho ìkan ń ṣe yín ní dápẹ́dàbọ̀ ìkan ní mọ́ rọra. Ìkan tó kù nígbà tí wọn ò mọ̀ Ìgbòho mọ̀rẹ́ kí ló dé Ìgbòho mọ̀rẹ́ sí ọmọ òpópó sanran ìgbàgede Ìgbòho sùn wọn láláìsí bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọn ní kó ní bẹ̀rẹ̀ ó máa kó bẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ ẹ̀sìn òní bímọ méjì ní Ìgbòho mọ̀rẹ́ bẹ́sìn bá bímọ méjì ní Ìgbòho áfíkan pọpọ sí amúkan yòókù bọ sànyà àtúmúyà rẹ tí ọlọ́rọ̀ gbọ́ àfìṣẹrù wálé wàràmùjẹ ọmọ onílé ọ̀la àwọn àjòjì tó ń ṣe ségesège tọ́láwọn oníbomi kó símú wọn láwọn oníbomi sànyà wẹsẹ̀ ìgbà tójú kò bírí ńkọ́ gbogbo wọn náà sáré bomi kó símú wọ́n sì bomi sànyà wẹsẹ̀ ọmọ abẹ́rẹ́ mẹ́ta òde ayé ọ̀kan ṣẹ́ ọ̀kan tẹ̀ ọ̀kan tó kù ní gbogbo ayé tí ń ránṣọ kiri gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá Sunday Ìgbòho onírèlẹ̀ láéláé torí àbá lásán nìkan ń dá òkúta ò ṣe pé fún wọn o ìmọ̀ràn lásán ni ti balùwẹ̀ kò pọ́sibú kó dòdò láyé ń bí ó kú díẹ̀ kíkọ́ domi láéláé ìtọ́ nílé domi Sunday Ìgbòho arógun má ti bí tó ń jà fẹ́tọ̀ Yorùbá ní tilé tó kó. Bàbá Àyànàdà lẹ́ni blúkẹ́ jákàmọ̀ lásìkò ìgbà wọn gbé tí àjọ bí ìlànà ìtumọ̀
mo kí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá káàkiri ibi tí ẹ bá tútù láǹfààní àti fẹ́ gbọ́ wa ní wákàtí mo kí wa pé a kú ọjọ́ ìní a máa jẹ́ ọjọ́ ajé tí Yorùbá wa bá sì jẹ́ ẹni tí ó sound dáadáa mo kí ọmọdé mo kí àgbàlagbà mo kí obìnrin mo kí arúgbó mo kí gbogbo ibi tí àwọn ọba ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ń bẹ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá àti ní ẹ̀yìn òde bí a ti ṣe ń kí yín ni à ń jẹ́ kó yé wa pé àwa ni ìran ọmọ aládé a fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ nípa Yorùbá culture àti pé kí nìdí tí a gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ kí culture yẹn kó parẹ́ tá bá sì ń bẹ nínú Nàìjíríà tí àwọn kan ń pè ní Nàìjíríà ó ṣeé ṣe kí culture wa kó parẹ́ o ẹ jẹ́ ká kọ́kọ́ gbọ́ bàbá wa Prof Adebanji Akintoye 2019 ni wọ́n gbé wa lọ sí UNPO Unrepresented People and Organization kí nìdí nítorí pé wọ́n fẹ́ jẹ́ kí ìran Yorùbá kó má parẹ́ rárá ẹ̀jẹ̀ àgbọ̀n tó sọ níbí náà.
Of Nigeria has been accepted as the 45th member of the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization. Leader of the Yoruba World Congress, Professor Adebanji Akintoye, says the membership represents a very important step in the collective quest of well-meaning Yoruba people to achieve the goal of dignity and self-determination.
It is my great pleasure and pride to inform you that the Yoruba nation has been admitted to the membership of UNPO. UNPO means Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, with its headquarters in The Hague. The UNPO has expressed their gladness to welcome the Yoruba nation as a new member of UNPO, and they're looking forward to working with us. It is important because it is a great stride, and it represents a very important step in our collective quest to achieve the goal of dignity in the country in which we live, and also to achieve the goal of self-determination for our nation. Our Yoruba nation now has a voice on the international stage via the machinery of the UNPO, which maintains a permanent presence before the United Nations and before other international agencies like the European Union, the African Union, the United States government, and the governments of various other countries across the world.
Ohun bàbá àwa alálùbáríkà tí a mọ̀ sí bàbá wa Professor Adebanji Akintoye náà ni a gbọ́ ní àìpẹ́ yìí. Mo kí wa lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí pé a tún kábọ̀ sórí ètò ti tọ̀sán tí a tún mú wá fún wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìṣe wa lórí ètò tiwa níbí. Ètò ti bíbá ẹni à ń pè ní Yorùbá self-determination. Àwa ìrànmọ́ aládé tí gbogbo ohun tí à ń sọ lọ́kàn wa tí ó wà lára wa ni pé àfi ká kúrò nínú ìlú tí wọ́n ń pè ní Nàìjíríà, ìlú tó ti bayé jẹ́, ìlú tó ti bọ̀nà jẹ́, ìlú tó fẹ́ gba culture kúrò lọ́wọ́ wa. Gbogbo ohun tí a bá ń sọ nísìnyí kò ń ṣe fún ẹ̀ní, fún ọjọ́ ọ̀la àti ìran wa ni. Gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá tó bá ń sọ pé ìta ń sọ lénìí kò ń ṣe tó yẹ ká máa sọ. Ìbéèrè tí ẹ ká bi wọ́n ni pé kí ló yẹ ká tún máa sọ, nítorí pé ẹ kúkú ti dìbò láti almost 23 years nínú Nàìjíríà. Kódà in tó ń ṣe ni pé ó ń pa culture mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́, ó dẹ̀ ń pa gbogbo ohun tí a fi ń pera wa ní ọmọ Yorùbá. Ìdí tí àwa ṣe wá wò ó pẹ̀lú bàbá wa alànà Professor Adebanji Akintoye, òun ni pé kíran wa, kí gbogbo ohun tí à ń pè níran Yorùbá kó má bàa di pé ní ọ̀la, tá bá sọ pé ọ̀la yìí kó tó ṣẹ́jú kó tó mọ̀, ilẹ̀ ọ̀la máa mọ́. Ilẹ̀ ọ̀la tó fẹ́ mọ̀ yẹn náà la ṣe wá ń kígbe, la ṣe ń tètè pariwo síta pé ká má di ẹni tí ó máa di ẹni tí wọn ò ní rántí mọ́. Bẹ́yìn kan bá ní kò ṣe kò lè pé ọ̀rọ̀ tá à ń sọ lénìí pé kò ní rí bẹ́ẹ̀, tó bá wá lọ rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ńkọ́? Tá bá dákẹ́ wọ́n ní tara wa bá wa dákẹ́. Ẹ má bínú, mo kí gbogbo ẹ̀yin tẹ́tí wà lórí ètò. A ní lè máa dárúkọ lẹ́ẹ̀kọ̀ọ̀kan nítorí pé ààrí ọjọ́ mu lénìí, torí 60 minutes la ní lórí ètò tọ̀sán yìí. Ìdí tí a ṣe wá ń sọ fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá àtọba àti ìjòyè àtàwọn olóṣèlú ni pé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìran ọmọ aládé kò jẹ́ ká ní kankan ṣe pẹ̀lú Nàìjíríà. Àwa náà lè dá dúró gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìlú kan látara ìlú tó ń bẹ ní gbogbo àgbáyé. Lénìí bí ẹ bá ń wo máàpù tó wà láyé lénìí, a máa rí pé ìlú tó 195 ló ń bẹ láyé yìí. Ìdí táwa kan ṣe wá náà sọ pé nígbà tó jẹ́ pé àwa ìran ọmọ aládé tí Elédùmarè dá dáadáa, kí la wá ń wá nínú Nàìjíríà nígbà tó jẹ́ pé a lè dá dúró náà gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìlú, ibi tí ọ̀rọ̀ tiwa àti àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tó fi ní kọ́lọ́fí díẹ̀ nìyẹn. Àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tó ń bẹ nínú Nàìjíríà lénìí, àwọn rò pé àwọn lè máa gbá ìtàn pè ní politics. Wọ́n fẹ́ máa ṣe ìtàn pè ní politics. Mo kíyà tó bí wa lọ́mọ, ẹ káàbọ̀ sórí ètò. Mo ti ṣe ń kí ẹ̀yin àgbàlagbà, ẹ̀yin ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n, ẹ̀yin ṣéwù, ẹ̀yin sheik, ẹ̀yin babaláwo, ẹ̀yin oníṣègùn, ẹ̀yin gbogbo àfà, ẹ̀yin ọmọlé kéwú, ẹ̀yin gbogbo ẹ̀sìn tó ń bẹ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá títí dé white garment, KICC, redeem, kò sí tí a fi ojú parẹ́. Gbogbo tá à ń sọ fún ọmọ Yorùbá ni pé ẹ má jẹ́ kó jẹ́ in tí ó máa di ọ̀la yìí tí àwa máa kábàámọ̀ pé tó bá jẹ́ pé a ti mọ̀ ni àbá sáré jù báyìí lọ. Ẹ máa wò pé ṣé kò sí nǹkan míì nínú ẹ̀ tó fi di pé ní gbogbo ìgbà ni àwa kan ń jáde la fi ń polongo pé a fẹ́ dá dúró gẹ́gẹ́ bí orílẹ̀-èdè kan. Ẹ̀tọ́ ń bẹ lóòótọ́ pé a lè dá dúró, àmọ́ tí ọmọ Yorùbá náà bá fọwọ́ sí, a máa fa ìfàsẹ́yìn fún wa. Ìdí tí àwa kan ṣe sọ pé lótìtọ́ lódodo a máa polongo fún yín ó wá kù sọmọ Yorùbá lọ́wọ́ pé bẹ́ẹ̀ máa gbà àbẹ́ẹ̀ ní gbà. Látìgbà tí a ti ń ṣe politics nílẹ̀ Yorùbá náà kò kúkú ṣe pé ó san wá, kàkà kó san wá ó mú àbùkù kàn wá ni. Nítorí pé gbogbo wàhálà àti akitiyan tá à ń ṣe nílẹ̀ Yorùbá lénìí tí a bá gbé yẹ̀wò a rí pé akitiyan yẹn kò rìn bó ṣe jẹ́ kó rìn tó. Ìgbà mélòó gan ló fi ń ṣèlú? Gbogbo pé wọ́n ti ń ṣe ìlú nísìnyí ó ti ń lọ fún 20 ọdún, almost 20 years plus. But ìwọ náà wò lẹ́yìn kó wò pé gbogbo ìgbà tí ẹ̀ ń ṣe àwọn ìpàdé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹgbẹ́ tó ń ṣe ní APC, AD, PDP, gbogbo ẹgbẹ́ tó bá ti darapọ̀ mọ́ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ṣé bí wọ́n ṣe ń ṣe nìyẹn tó fi di pé lẹ́nìí ó ti ń pa ìtànpè ní ìran ọmọ Yorùbá? Nítorí pé díẹ̀ bí àwọn ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n ṣe ń sọ a ti rí i pé àwa fúnra wa gan àbí púpọ̀ mọ́ àwọn ẹ̀yà tó ń bá wa gbé wọ́n ti ń bí jù wá lọ. So in tó ń jẹ́ kó yé wa ni pé tí a bá ṣe ìtànpè ní ká gba ìlú wa lénìí ó ṣeé ṣe pé àjòjì ló máa darí wa lọ́jọ́ iwájú. Ó lè má wáyé lénìí, ó lè má wáyé ní 20 ọdún, ó lè má wáyé ní 20, 30, 40 years. Àmọ́ tó bá máa fi dìgbà kan ẹ rí i pé population wa lénìí á máa decline nígbà táwa ò bá bí sí táwọn ẹ̀yà tó kù dẹ̀ ń bí tó ń gbé pẹ̀lú wa. Ìdí tí gbogbo àgbáyé lénìí ṣe ń sọ pé immigration èrò tó ń wọlé ti pọ̀ jù. Tá fi àpèjúwe nílùú òyìnbó tí mo wà yìí, àwọn kan tí ń wọlé under scholarship àbí scheme kan tó ń pè ní COS, ó yá àwọn tí wọ́n ti wọlé pẹ̀lú ẹ̀. Àwọn òyìnbó tìlú Gẹ̀ẹ́sì tí mo wà yìí àwọn wá ń tara pé àwọn tó fún ní COS yẹn wọ́n tún ń kó àwọn mẹ̀lẹ́bí wọn wọ́n tún kó wọn wọlé. Nígbà tó wá wo breakdown yẹn tó wo statistics pé àwọn tó ń wọlé yẹn àwọn tó fún ní COS gangan gbogbo wọn tá bá ní káwò lọ́bọ̀ they are just under 150,000. But àwọn tó ń kó bọ̀ tí wọ́n jẹ́ dependent wọn, ẹni tó ti bímọ, ẹni tó ní brother, ẹni tó lẹ́gbọ̀n, ẹ mọ̀ pé package yẹn gbogbo wa la fi mọ àwọn tó ń wọlé. Èmi náà ní family mi kan tó ṣẹ̀ dé láìpẹ́ yìí, àti ìyàwó àtọkọ àtàbúrò gbogbo wọn lọ́jọ́ dé. Now àwọn òyìnbó wọn sọ pé kíní ti fẹ́ di nǹkan míì. Àwọn tá a nídìí lóòótọ́ a nídìí wọn nítorí pé nílùú yìí àwọn àgbàlagbà ń dàgbà kò dàbí Nàìjíríà. Ọlọ́run jẹ́ ká dàgbà ká darúgbó nínú Nàìjíríà. Àmọ́ bí WHO ṣe sọ kò likely pé a máa dàgbà gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwọn àgbàlagbà tíjọ́ náà. Àwọn ọ̀dọ́ ló ń kú tó pọ̀ jù nílẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ́nìí. Àwọn ọ̀dọ́ tó ń kú yẹn wọ́n ò jẹ́ kí wọ́n rí ògo yẹn lò délẹ̀. Àwọn UK wá sọ pé kàkà kí a máa jẹ́ kí àwọn tó máa kó mọ̀lẹ́bí wọn wá, wọ́n wá ní láìpẹ́ yìí mo mọ̀ bóyá wọ́n ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ bọ́ kò ní pẹ́ mọ́. Gbogbo ẹni tó bá máa wá lọ́ndà COS ò ní lè kó mọ̀lẹ́bí ẹ wá mọ́. Àwọn mọ̀lẹ́bí àjókòó sí ìlú ẹ lọ́hùn, wàá máa fowó ránṣẹ́ sí wọn nígbà tí wọ́n bá ń ṣiṣẹ́ níbí tó ń san tax. Now ìwọ náà wá wò bẹ́ẹ̀ pé àwọn tó ń bá wa gbé tí kò kí ń ṣe ọmọ ẹ̀yà tiwa tí wọ́n bá wa gbé gẹ́gẹ́ bí Nigerians lénìí tí wọ́n lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ according to the fraudulent constitution. Àwọn tó ń bá wa gbé yìí ẹ̀yà tí wọ́n ti ń tako ẹ̀yà ti tọ̀dọ̀ tiwa. Kódà wọ́n tún fi yé wa pé àwọn ìgbésẹ̀ kan wà tá à ń gbé nílẹ̀ Yorùbá tí a gbọ́dọ̀ gbé. Ó ti wá ń di tó ń pè ní conflict of interest. Conflict of interest yẹn ó ti ń ta padà bá wa nítorí pé tá bá kọ́kọ́ wò ó yàtọ̀ sáwọn tó ń kó màálù wọlé tó fi ń jẹ oko, ẹ̀yà tiwọn yẹn ó ń fi tiwọn kó bá ẹ̀yà tiwa tí kò kí ń ṣe ẹ̀yà burúkú torí ọmọlúàbí ní tàwa. Ìdí tó yẹ kẹ́yìn wá máa wò nísìn pé tá bá dákẹ́ kára wa bá wa dákẹ́. Lótìtọ́ lọ́kàn ọmọ Yorùbá àwọn tó ń ṣe òṣèlú pẹ̀lú àwọn mẹ̀kúnnù tó ń tẹ̀lé wọn lẹ́yìn, àwọn rò pé àwọn olóṣèlú máa dáwọ́ ibi tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ dúró nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. mo ti fẹ́ mẹ́nu lọ àwọn tó ń pààyàn àwọn dáràndáràn tó ń pera wọn ní àwọn bòròró tó ń kó màálù wọnú oko wa. ẹ jẹ́ ká kọ́kọ́ wo ilẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ́nìí. Kí ni economic structure ilẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ́nìí? Mo ń bá brọ́dà mi kan sọ̀rọ̀, port ló ti ń ṣiṣẹ́. Mo wá ní báwo nìkan ṣe ń lọ nínú port. Ó ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ máa yẹ kí n parọ́ fún yín o, kò sí kankan tó ń lọ mọ́ nínú port nísìn. Kódà òun ti padà sóko láti bí oṣù 4 nísìn. Ó fi ń lọ̀ mí, ó ní brọ́dà mi jọ̀ọ́, mo ní ṣàkó tí mo lè supply. Tẹ bá ní àwọn tó fẹ́ rà, mo ní ó wù mí pé ká gbà lọ́wọ́ ẹ lóòótọ́. Gbogbo abi tí mo ti béèrè, wọ́n ní àwọn náà ní lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́. Ìtìyàn bá dẹ̀ mọ̀ kò kí ń ṣe wàhálà ẹ̀. Now ẹ mọ̀ pé arákùnrin inú port ló ti ń ṣiṣẹ́ gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọmọ Yorùbá. Bọ̀ nítorí pé ẹ̀yin ò tí mọ̀ pé Nàìjíríà ti affect orí èèyàn bẹ́ẹ̀. Kàkà kó máa ṣiṣẹ́ ní port nísìnyí tí a máa fi ṣọwọ́ tá máa fi dáwọ́ padà. Ó wá dẹni tó padà sóko. Irú òun nísìnyí oko tó padà sí yẹn in tó dá lóòótọ́ ni. Àmọ́ a ti lose ọmọ Yorùbá kan nínú Lagos State. Ọmọ Yorùbá ni àmọ́ kò láǹfààní àti jẹ wàhálà tó fẹ́ ṣe àti tó ń pè nílẹ̀ Yorùbá tá à ń pè ní Lagos State lénìí. Ta ló wá ń jàǹfààní ti Lagos State gangan? Àwọn wo ló ń jàǹfààní ẹ̀ láàrin gbogbo wa? Ṣé ọmọ Yorùbá ló ń jàǹfààní ní Port Authority? Nítorí pé arákùnrin tí mò ń sọ yìí ó ti ń ṣiṣẹ́ ní Port Authority kò ń ṣọ̀rọ̀ ọdún 3 kò ń ṣọ̀rọ̀ ọdún 4 àmọ́ kò wá láǹfààní àti ṣiṣẹ́ níbẹ̀ mọ́. That means pé a ti lose one person. Now ẹ jẹ́ ká wá calculate bẹ́ẹ̀. Àwọn ẹ̀yà tó ń gbé pẹ̀lú wa kò sí nǹkan tó wrong tí àwọn ẹ̀yà bá gbé pẹ̀lú wa, but ó ti wá di pé ara ti ń ni wá. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ yín tá bá ní àwọn ẹ̀yà tó ń gbé pẹ̀lú wa, àwọn ọmọ Ìgbò lẹ máa ń fọkàn sí ní púpọ̀. Kò sí nǹkan tó jẹ́ pé ó wrong níbẹ̀ tá bá ń point finger fún wọn. But ǹjẹ́ yín mọ̀ pé àwọn ẹ̀yà míì ń bẹ tó ń gbé pẹ̀lú wa nílẹ̀ Yorùbá bíi Dangote, because project Dangote nísìnyí tó ṣe sí Lagos State tó wọ́ ti $20 billion. Ǹjẹ́ yìí mọ̀ pé àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá púpọ̀ kò láǹfààní gan láti ṣiṣẹ́ nílé iṣẹ́ yẹn? Ẹ tí mọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀, ẹ̀yin fi ojú wo àwọn Ìgbò pé àwọn ló ń gba ìlú mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́, wọ́n dẹ̀ rẹ́dì láti gbà á. Ǹjẹ́ wàá ń fọkàn sí pé Dangote fúnra rẹ̀ pẹ̀lú àwọn tó ń kó wá láti India? Nítorí pé ẹ̀yà tó ló ń kó wá yẹn pé kó wá ṣiṣẹ́ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, àwọn ẹ̀yà tá a máa bímọ ni. Ǹjẹ́ ń fọkàn síbẹ̀? Tá a bá ń sọ pé inú igbó nìkan làwọn tó ń pa wá, àwọn tó ń pa wá economically, àwọn bòròró tí àwọn ìjọba tọ̀hún tó fún ní access ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Nítorí pé lẹ́ni nísìnyí tá a bá ní ká wo gbogbo àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tó lówó ní Lagos State, ní Ogun State, ẹ rí i pé wọ́n ò lè compete pẹ̀lú Dangote àti arákùnrin tó ń pè ní BUA. Lótìtọ́ aláwọn tó jẹ́ gbòógì ọmọ Yorùbá tó lówó, but in táwọn wá ń ṣe ni pé irú project Dangote nísìnyí tẹ́ bá calculated within the next 50 years kò likely pọ̀ ọmọ Yorùbá tó máa ṣiṣẹ́ ń bẹ̀ máa pọ̀. Àwọn foreigner ló máa lọ kó wá, àwọn foreigner yẹn á wá máa bímọ sí in the next 30-40 years wọ́n máa overrun ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Now ìbéèrè wa ni pé ṣọmọ Ìgbò nìkan ló fẹ́ gbalẹ̀ wa ni àbírú Dangote tó ń lo project ẹ̀ yẹn tó fi ń prepare láti overthrow wa kúrò nílẹ̀ wa. Lótìtọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ó lè má yí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀. Ọ̀rọ̀ inú igbó kọ́ ni mò ń sọ nísìnyí, mò ń sọ a glaring project tí gbogbo wa tá à ń rí báyìí tó ń dùn mọ́ wa nínú. Dangote project can literally wipe off gbogbo Yorùbá nílẹ̀ Yorùbá within the next 60 years. Nítorí pé àwọn Indian tó lọ ń kó wá yẹn tó ń gbé níbẹ̀ yẹn, àwọn á máa bí sí wá máa rẹ̀ sí, and they will become tó bá yá àwọn náà fẹ́ gba citizenship Nàìjíríà. Àìtí sọ̀rọ̀ nípa àwọn Lebanese, àwọn Ṣàgórì, àwọn bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Ìbéèrè tí mo wá ń béèrè ni pé ǹjẹ́ kò ní dé stage kan bá ṣe ń bá lọ yìí tá a máa lose culture wa? Ìwọ ni kò wá béèrè lọ́wọ́ rẹ pé ṣé o fẹ́ jókòó kó di pé ilẹ̀ Yorùbá máa parẹ́ lójú ẹ? Akókú ti sọ pé gbogbo akọ́la máa wà láyé for the next 200 years. Àmọ́ àwa kan ò ní lajú wa sílẹ̀. Táwọn bá dijú wọn, táwọn òjòyè bá dijú wọn, táwọn politician bá dijú wọn, àwa kan ò ní gbà. Ìdí ta ṣe takú tí n ta gbé dání nìyẹn. Ẹ ń ṣe election for 4 years nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, ìyẹn ò lè protect wa lọ́jọ́ iwájú. nítorí pé abẹ́ Nàìjíríà náà ni ẹ sì fi operate and ẹni tó bá dẹ̀ jẹ́ citizen ní Nàìjíríà ó ní right láti gbé níbi tó bá fẹ́ gbé nílẹ̀ Yorùbá ó dẹ̀ ní right láti contest. These are reasons why some of us have now said enough is enough. We must value and protect our identity, our culture, and who we are. Má jẹ́ kíyàn kan fún ẹ ní fàbú pé Yorùbá country kò lè wá sí àìmúṣẹ. Wọ́n lè máa sọ yẹn fúnra wọn. Àwọn ò kì í ṣàwọn Afẹ́nifẹ́re gbogbo ẹnu mo fi sọ. Afẹ́nifẹ́re tó ń sáré báwọn wá restructure láti over 40-60 years tó fún wọn. Àwa ò ní jókòó yẹn. Ìdí tá máa ṣe ń sọ fún ẹ̀yin tí à ń bá sọ̀rọ̀ pé ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà nílẹ̀ yìí bó kàn mí ó kàn wọ́ ó kàn ra ilé ó kàn ra ta. We will not sit back and allow foreigners to overrun Yoruba territory. Nígbà. We will continue to highlight it. We will continue to talk about it whether you like it or not. It is just coming up to 22 minutes past 3 p.m. local time in London. My name is Olami Koiki. And let's continue from another angle. Mo kí gbogbo ẹ̀yin tẹ́ tí ń darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. Yoruba nation chooses the noble path to its noble goal. Lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí, Yoruba nation chooses the noble path to the noble goal. As we continue to say it clearly that nobody must allow us to be wiped off from the surface of this earth. Mo sọ fún yín ní last week, FBI, the director of the FBI, ó sọ̀rọ̀ ní America. Ó ní oògùn oróró, you know, I'm sure you understand almost àwọn oògùn tí wọ́n ṣe jàǹbá fẹ́yàn. Àwọn dá 270 million àwọn intercepted in the space of 48 months. Ọdún méjì. Oògùn olóró. That means pé in tó ń sọ ni pé apart from the cyber crime tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ l'Amẹ́ríkà táwọn stop, àwọn kan tó fẹ́ gbé oògùn olóró yẹn wọ́n fẹ́ gbé wọlé láti fi ṣe jàǹbá fún àwọn ọmọ Amẹ́ríkà. Apart from that, wọ́n ní Amẹ́ríkà fúnra rẹ̀ ó ti wà prone to attack by so many terrorists. Tó bá jẹ́ pé ọmọ Yorùbá ń ronú bí Ògúndé ṣe sọ, ó jẹ́ ká tètè máa ronú pé nígbà tí Amẹ́ríkà ń complain nípa cyber crime, nípa pé oògùn olóró wọ́n fẹ́ fi pa àwọn aráàlú wọn àtàwọn terrorists lè attack wọn, ìjáwá náà wà concern nílẹ̀ Yorùbá bẹ́ẹ̀ àbí a kàn sọ pé kò lè possible. Ọlọ́run ọba ẹ̀ ní jẹ́ kó possible, Jésù Kristo ní jẹ́ kó possible, ànábì ò ní jẹ́ kó possible, àwọn onílẹ̀ ò ní jẹ́ kó possible. À ń tanra wa ni o. The probability that we will be overrun ó ti wà glaring, ó dẹ̀ sì wà glaring nítorí pé gbogbo wa là ń rí bó ṣe ń lọ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá títí di wákàtí. Gbogbo wa la lè rí. Kódà tó bá dijú méjèèjì wàá máa fílẹ̀ wàá máa smẹ́lẹ̀ nítorí pé ilẹ̀ Yorùbá gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n line tó fẹ́ bà tiwa jẹ́ tọ́lọ́run ọba Elédùmarè ò ní jẹ́ kó rí tiwa bàjẹ́, tí wọ́n fẹ́ fi tiwọn ṣe àkóbá fáwa látara pé wọ́n fẹ́ gbalẹ̀ mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́. Ṣé rí ariwo tá à ń papọ̀ máa gbalẹ̀ mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́? Ẹ má ẹ̀ka máa fi ṣeré. It is possible and wọ́n lè lo anything láti fi gbalẹ̀ yẹn mọ́ yín lọ́wọ́, especially àwa la ní yọ̀tọ̀mì tó ń pè ní waterways ní Atlantic Ocean. Omi yẹn àwa làwa ní. Omi tó ń bẹ ní gbogbo ilẹ̀ Yorùbá yẹn, omi tó jẹ́ pé another 1,000 years a gbọ́dọ̀ protected against invaders, against àwọn alákòóbá àdábá tó fẹ́ wá fi tiwọn kó bá ilẹ̀ Yorùbá àti ìran wa. Lótìtọ́ gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá ń rò pé ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ọ̀rọ̀ ìjọba kan là ń bínú sí. Ó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ torí pé ìjọba tó ń bẹ níbẹ̀ lénìí kò lè wà níbẹ̀ for the next 30 years. Ìjọba tó ń bẹ níbẹ̀ lénìí kò lè wà níbẹ̀ forever. Ó ní timeline. Kò wá sí gbogbo tó bá ṣe wàhálà tó bá ṣe ìjọ tó bá ti dàrú mọ́ lọ́wọ́, that will be the end of it. And this is why some of us are campaigning for a Yoruba country, a Yoruba nation, an Oduduwa republic, whatever we want to call it. Gbogbo alákòókò máa jáde láyé láì má forúkọ sọ síta. Tẹ́ bá lọ sórí péjì wa lénìí, ẹ rí pé bàbá wa kan lénìí ó ti di ntí ó ti lọ́ntì ẹ̀. Ìyẹn bàbá náà bí gbogbo wa ṣe máa lọ lẹ́yọ kọ̀ọ̀kan tó bá jẹ́ pé àwọn bàbá yẹn náà ti ń bá wa pariwo léraléra, gbogbo wa la máa lọ. Kò sẹ́ni wáyé tó ní lọ àfi tó bá ń parọ́ fún rẹ̀. Gbogbo wa la máa kú. Àdúrà pé kó jìnnà síra wọn là ń gbà. But at some point death is gonna come. Ǹjẹ́ ìwọ tẹ̀ ń ronú pé tí wọ́n bá tẹ̀ sí mọ́ ilẹ̀ tí o rò pé kọ́lé sí, ṣé o sọ pé ilé yẹn fúnra rẹ̀ ṣì máa wà níbẹ̀ débi pé ilẹ̀ yẹn gan máa wà níbẹ̀? Oko tó ní o fún àwọn fámílì ẹ pé kó máa lò, pé at least o ti fìkan sílẹ̀. Ẹ mọ̀ pé gbogbo àná là ń gbàdúrà pé ká jogún nǹkan lọ́wọ́ àwọn òbí wa, àwọn fámílì wa kankan, even though pé ìjà ló ń dá sílẹ̀ láàrin mọ̀lẹ́bí rẹpẹtẹ. Ǹjẹ́ o mọ̀ pé gbogbo ilẹ̀ tó ń sọ yìí ìjọ kan lè wáyé tó jẹ́ pé kò ní jẹ́ tọ̀dọ̀ wa mọ́? Ẹ jẹ́ ká wá ka díẹ̀ nípa ìtàn tí bàbá wa Alànà. Ìwé náà ó wà ní PDF. Ẹni tó bá ń wá, tẹ́ bá ti lọ sórí Ọláyọmí Kóìkì or koikimedia.com rather. Ẹ gbọ́ bíbá dáadáa o. In tí mo fẹ́ ka díẹ̀ lára ẹ̀ nísìnyí, ànílẹ̀ ka gbogbo ẹ̀tàn torí in tó pọ̀ ní volume ńlá ni. Pé wọ́n ti ń prepare ìwé yìí ní drafted is as far back as 1977 ní bàbá wa Alànà Professor Adebanji Akintoye, the oracle himself, ló ti ń kọ ìtàn Yorùbá. Ẹni tó bá fẹ́ kà, tó bá fẹ́ copy ẹ̀, tẹ́ bá lọ sórí www.koikimedia.com. Ẹ wá lọ sínú fáìlì kan tó ń pè ní Yorùbá document files. Inú bẹ̀rẹ̀ ti máa rí in tí mo fẹ́ kà yìí. Ẹ ní láti pè mí pé kí n sẹ́ndẹ̀ sí yín. Ẹ lọ sórí wẹ́bsáìtì wa. Gbogbo yín kọ́ la máa lè láǹfààní àti rí bá sọ̀rọ̀. Ẹni bá rí wa bá sọ̀rọ̀ ká dúpẹ́ fọlọ́run. Ìyá wa kan message tó send láti August, mo ṣe retire ni. Èmi nìkan ni mo wà nínú ilé yìí tí fóònù mi wà lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀, tí mo monitor tó ń lọ nínú fóònù mi. Fóònù méjì náà ni over 3,000 messages ló ń bẹ níbẹ̀. Tó bá send message sí mi tá a bá rí kà, ẹ má fi ṣèbínú. So tẹ́ bá gbọ́ broadcast débi báyìí pé mo sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ìwé kan tí bàbá wa Lànà kọ. Ìwé yẹn ti wà ní hard copy. Àwọn kan ti ń béèrè pé níbo làwọn máa ti rí, tó ti wà nínú Amazon. Máa láti béèrè lọ́wọ́ bàbá wa Alànà. Wàá lè sọ fún mi ibi tí a bá ti máa ràwé náà. But pé ìwọ tó bá nídẹ̀ ní file ní PDF, ẹ lọ sórí koikimedia.com. Ẹ láǹfààní láti rí níbẹ̀. Ẹ má pè mí pé bàbá wa Kóìkì, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ báwo la ṣe lè rí fáìlì yẹn. Ìtẹ́yìn kan máa ṣe ni pé ẹ̀yin lọ sórí wẹ́bsáìtì wa, ó ti wà níbẹ̀. Ìdí tá a ṣe ní wẹ́bsáìtì nìyẹn. Ẹ bá wa máa pín ètò, ẹ bá wa máa pín gbogbo átíkù tá à ń kọ. Ìyẹn ni a fi máa rìn tó máa débi tó jẹ kó dé. The title of the book, and I'm going to read it for probably maximum 20 minutes without any interference. Èdè òyìnbó ni máa fi kà á torí èmi ò gbọ́ Yorùbá débẹ̀ débi pé a máa ṣàyàn gbé fún ẹ̀. English náà dẹ̀ lọ fi kọ́. Again, the title says, and I quote, A History of the Yoruba People, Professor Adebanji Akintoye. Total page ìwé ní PDF is up to 519 in tó gùn gan ni. So a gbìyànjú láti ka ìwọ̀nba tá a bá lè kà nínú ẹ̀ nísìn. 1977 ni bàbá Akintoye ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí draft èyí tí mo fẹ́ kà fún wa ẹ̀. Mo kí gbogbo èyí tí ẹ wà lórí ètò, ẹ má bínú pé a ní lè dárúkọ lẹ́yọ kọ̀ọ̀kan. I started to sketch the outline of this book, bàbá Akintoye ló ń sọ̀rọ̀ nísìn, in 1978. That's about almost 45 years ago. My objective in writing this book is to place in the hands of the Yoruba people in the hands of students of Yoruba and African history, and in the hands of the general reader, a lucida account of Yoruba history using the product of the latest research on the subject. Once again, Interfaith Nisin is very powerful, and let us go straight into it because of my time this afternoon. History of the Yoruba people. To the Pathfinder Samuel Johnson, Saburi O Biobaku, Jacob F. Ade Ajayi, Isa Adeagbo Akinjogbi. History of the Yoruba people by Professor Adebanji Akintoye. This was published by Amelion Publishing. No one should try to duplicate this. There's a copyright on it. This was published in 2014, first published in print by Amelion Publishing in 2010, somewhere in Senegal. I hope I'll be able to read. Okay, let's see. The content, prefix, acknowledgement, the beginning, the development of the early Yoruba society. Before Oduduwa, Ife in the 9th to the 10th century. We are presently at the 21st century. This is how beautiful, Yoruba je, that some of us are trying to say we should forget. The revolution in Ife, 10th to the 11th century. The primary of Ife, 11th to the 15th century. Traditions of kingdom founders. The kingdoms of Yoruba land. The politics of the kingdom rule. The kingdoms and the economy, part 1. The kingdoms and economy, part 2. The frontier effect. The great Oyo Empire. The fall of Oyo Empire. Yoruba land in the 19th century. The wars of change. Yoruba land in the 19th century. Other agencies of change. The Yoruba diaspora. The politics of the 20th century. The social transformation in the 20th century. Note, biography index. Maps, Yoruba land. Yoruba land, the frontier kingdoms in the western Sudan. Oyo Empire at its greatest extent. Early Christian missions in Nigeria. Nigeria regional structure 1955. Nigeria state structure 1967. Nigeria state structure 1995. My objective in writing this book is to place in the hands of the Yoruba people, in the hands of students of Yoruba and African history, in the hands of the general reader, a lucida account of Yoruba history, using the product of the latest research on the subject. Writing such an account has been far from easy. The volume of research on the subject is large and continually growing, and many partly unresolved issues of the fact and interpretation litter the field. Therefore, the urge for me to write an account addressed only to academic historians, my own colleagues, has been very difficult to overcome. I can only hope that I have overcome it to some extent by, among other things, trimming down on the more difficult controversies as well as uncomplex cross-referencing, footnoting that might distract the general reader, and that the volume that has hereby resulted goes a long way to fulfill my objective. With a population variously estimated at between 30 to 40 million, the Yoruba are perhaps the largest single ethnic group or nationality. In Black Africa, moreover, Their history is one of the most researched and analyzed of any people in Africa. For this latter fact, there are various reasons, of which one is the traditional structure and the consequent historical consciousness of Yoruba society. Another is the high level of literacy among the Yoruba people today. And yet another is the growing importance of Yoruba students in the overall spectrum of African and Black studies. The Yoruba were the most urbanized people in the history of the tropical African forest land, having largely lived in the walled cities and towns since early as the 11th or the 12th century. In those towns and cities that evolved a sophisticated monarchy system of government, whose governing this elite established detailed institutions and process for preserving society history and passing it on, a circumstances that has both encouraged and facilitated the study of Yoruba history in our times. Then, since the beginning of the 12th century, the Yoruba have invested more in education than any other African people, and by the end of the 12th century were widely regarded as the most literate people in Africa. Once again, this book can be downloaded on our website www.koikimedia.com as we continue to read. A significant consequences of this growing literacy has been that much indigenous effort has gone into the writing of the Yoruba history. Bear with us, we're just trying to start the Twitter space so that we can get one or two people that can listen to this part of the history that we're talking about. Once again, the Yoruba culture is something that must continue, and we cannot afford to let this culture and our identity to be stolen by the country called Nigeria. Once again, a very good afternoon and welcome to my conversation. Okay, bear with me. All right, let me return it back to 100. I'm just trying to pick where I read it up to, because I don't want to jump. 12th century, venturing to writing. No, I didn't get there yet. Okay, let me just start from here. In those towns and cities that evolved a sophisticated monarchy system of government, whose governing elite established detailed institution process for preserving society history and passing it on, a circumstance that has both encouraged and facilitated the study of Yoruba history in our times. Then, since the beginning of the 12th century, the Yoruba have invested more in education than any other African people, and by the end of the 12th century were widely regarded as the most literate people in Africa. A significant consequence of this growing literacy has been regarded as the most literate people in Africa. A significant consequences of this growing literacy as that much indigenous effort has gone into the writing of the Yoruba history. Venturing into writing reconstruction of the past began as soon as there were some literate Yoruba in the 9th century. Then it flowered vigorously in the course of the 12th century, and it has been augmented by contributions from many professional historians, indigenous and foreign, finally to the Black people in general, and especially to the people of the Black African diaspora in America, in the United States, Brazil, Central Africa, Cuba, Haiti, Trinidad, and other parts of the West Indies. A knowledge of Yoruba history has been growing in importance. This is not merely because of the size of the Yoruba population, but also because of the high level of civilization attained by the Yoruba people in the past. But also because of the high level of civilization in the past, the growing knowledge of Yoruba contribution to black culture in the New World and continued dynamism of Yoruba civilization in the modern times, all of which have attracted increasing interest into Yoruba research. The present book is an attempt by a student and teacher of Yoruba and African history to synthesize for the popular education the data that has become available to us on the Yoruba history at the beginning of the 21st century. It is a product of my lifelong participation in the development of the Yoruba and African history studies in the universities in Africa and the United States. I offer it in humble hope that it will contribute something to the growing knowledge of Yoruba history in particular and the history of Africa and black people in general, that it will provide further interest in Yoruba and African history, and above all, that it will increase the Yoruba people's love of and romance with their impressive and fascinating heritage. Because most of the Yoruba people have lived in the modern country of Nigeria since the beginning of the European imperialists rule over Africa in the early 12th century, there now exists a tendency to write of the Yoruba as if they are entirely a Nigerian people. To the dismay of those who are now citizens of the republics of Benin and Togo, the Yoruba people and country are split by two international boundaries, and while the largest portion is to be found in Nigeria, some substantial parts are to be found in Benin and Togo. This book presents a history of all Yoruba people. Finally, I have added somewhat novel dimension to the perspective of this world. As professor of African history at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria in the 60s and 1970s, I designed and taught an introductory course in African American history, and during a sabbatical in the United States, I worked with others to establish an African and African American Studies program at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida. Later, when I served as the director of the Institute of African Studies at Obafemi Awolowo University in the late 1970s, we initiated some programs on the African diaspora in America as an integral part of our multidisciplinary approach to African studies. All these stem from my belief that a study of the experience of Africans transplanted to the Americans in the era of the Atlantic slave trade needs to be seen by scholars and peoples of Africa as a part of African experience in general. In recent years, happily considerable advances have been made worldwide in the study of African diaspora in the Americas. Since the 1990s, that study has moved beyond computing of the numbers of Africans transported to the Americas and beyond the impact of American slavery on enslaved Africans. It has deepened to include studies of the contributions of transplanted African heritage to the evolution of African American cultures. In context of this deeper approach, much light has been thrown on the contribution of Yoruba heritage, in particular to the development of the cultures of the African diaspora in the Americas. People of Yoruba descent and the heritage of Yoruba civilization constitute a very significant component of African American cultures in most parts of Americas. Therefore, I have ventured to include a shorter chapter of the history of Yoruba diaspora in America in this book to highlight the unavoidable continuity between the history of Africa and the history of African diaspora. in the hope that the Yoruba people in the West African homeland will become more actively interested in the history of their people across the Atlantic, and in the hope that black people in the Americas will become more proactive in searching and proudly interacting with their African roots and heritage. Once again, this is still Koiki Media, bringing the world closer to your doorstep as we continue to review the book, A History of the Yoruba People by Professor Adebanji Akintoye. Let's move swiftly. I started to sketch the outline of this book in 1978. This is the acknowledgement. In the Department of History of Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria, at the time when colleges in that department, in collaboration with other departments, were working on a research project focused on systematic collection of Yoruba oral traditions. I finally completed the writing in retirement in the United States from early 2006 to the end of 2007, utilizing my research note spanning 4 decades. That is 40 years. Wow. God bless Professor Adebanji Akintoye for us. Once again, moving further, as well as the rich spread of research work by many historians, now available in monographs, composite books, professional journal articles, and unpublished papers and theses. First and foremost, therefore, I acknowledge my indebtedness to the Department of History at Obafemi Awolowo University and to my colleagues in that department, among whom it was always easy to think great thoughts and dream great dreams. Among these colleagues, I must highly for special mention Dr. Adebanji Akintoye, for many years chair of our department and pioneer of many of our joint research programs, and my friend Dr. Charles Amadi, for years chair of international studies at the University of South Florida, Tampa, Florida, who worked with us at Ife as a visiting professor in the 1970s and became very helpful in the development of my effort in African American and American history. I wrote the manuscript of this book as I did my early years in longhand, and that means that I received a lot of help from my close friends in word processing on computer. While thanking all of their invaluable assistance, I must express particularly gratitude to Mr. Oluremi Oyeyemi, a Nigerian journalist now living in exile in the United States, for his intense interest in and unflagging encouragement of this work. Throughout the month that I worked on completing this book, my wife, Faith Tola, and our sons exhaustively supported and encouraged me and took turns to read part of my draft. I am grateful for their loving support. This book represents for me the final harvest of my career of studies in the Yoruba history. For that reason, I hereby acknowledge the contribution to my academic career by the men who, in my undergraduate years at the University College, Ibadan, Nigeria, in the late 1950s, first ignite my interest in the study of African history. My professor, Kenneth D.K. J.F. Adeajayi, Abdullahi Smith, J.D. Oman Cooper, A.B. Aderingbe. Of these professors, Ajayi went on to supervise my graduate study, showing great understanding of and patience with my other interests, and continue ever after as my mentor and friend. In the course of these past 2 years, I have depended on my favorite local library, Indiana Valley Public Library, Telford, Pennsylvania, for a heavy program of interlibrary loans. I am very grateful to the staff of the wonderful institution for always making their services promptly, smoothly available to me. I am very grateful to the following historians of African and Yoruba history for kindly reading my manuscript and offering important comments and suggestions. Dr. J.F. Adeajayi, Emeritus Professor of History, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. Dr. Elise Sonomi, Professor of History, Department of African History, and the Archaeological National University of Benin at Abome, Kawi, Benin Republic, now retired. Dr. R.C.C. Law, Professor of African History, Stirling University, Stirling, Scotland. Dr. Toyin Falola, the Francois Igbona Na Centennial Professor in the History of University of Texas, Houston. Dr. Funsho Afolayan, Associate Professor of History and African Study, University of New Hampshire, Durham, New Hampshire. Dr. Adebayo Oyebade, Professor of History, Tennessee State University, Navassa, Tennessee. I also thank Dr. Elisi Sonomi for his assistance with some of the materials relating to the history of the Yoruba of Benin Republic. Dr. Dele Agbade of the Department of Agriculture, State of Maryland, for his help with some of the maps. Dr. Iyiwola Awoyele of the Linguistic Data Consortium, University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Dr. Mayowa Ogedengbe of the Department of African Studies, Temple University, Philadelphia, for their assistance with the Yoruba orthography employed in this book. Finally, I give glory for all the help I have received while working to complete this book, for the health and strength to bring it to successful conclusion. You can see the importance of Yoruba nation. Ẹ gbọ́ àwọn orúkọ tí wọ́n dá níbẹ̀ yẹn. This is the reason why we cannot allow Yoruba nation to die. These are important people. I hope most of them are still alive, because those names, these individuals Baba Akintoye mentioned here, shows that Baba Akintoye knows exactly that until we are free from the bondage of Nigeria, that is when the Yoruba people will prosper. If we do not get out of Nigeria, we are all in big danger. We're going to move swiftly again. I still have a bit of more time, but as soon as I'm ready to come out, I will let us know. So we are now going into, I guess, the page 1. The beginning. The Yoruba have some remarkable graphic myths of creation and of origin. The most widely known Yoruba myth has it that the beginning of time, when the whole surface of the earth was one watery matter, Olodumare, also known as Olorun, King of Heaven, sent down some heavenly beings to create solid land, as well as plant life and animal life on the earth, bringing with them some quantity of earth, one chicken, one palm nut. They came down by a chain, landed on the spot that is now known as Ife in the earth of Yoruba land. They poured the earth onto the water and thus created a small piece of solid land. Then they set the chicken on the land, and as the chicken scattered at it with its claws, the small piece of dry land spread. Continued to spread until all the continent and island of the world came into existence. The heavenly beings saw the palm nut. It sprouted and grew as the beginning of plant life in the world. The heavenly beings themselves became the progenitors of the human race. The place where all this began was named Ife. That is the source of the spreading. The Yoruba believe that there is the first race of humans, and that all human life and civilization originated in their country. I mean, let me explain that a little bit, because there's no point just reading and reading without giving you a bit of explanation to my knowledge. Intan sọ ni pé àwa gangan ni ìran ọmọ aládé. We created what a lot of you are watching and seeing around the world. But we've been deceived by coming to Europe, by going to America, by trying to believe that until we have an American passport, that is when our life will be better. When literally, ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ló yẹ ká wà, in the better weather, then working hard with the resources that we have with a solid Yoruba passport, just like the American passport. But today, we are losing it, and we are losing it very gradually. And if we do not recall it back now, it will have a big impact on my life, your life, maybe even our children. What about our great-grandchildren? What about nígbà táwa bá kúrò láyé yìí? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, we want some of us that are outside the country, and those of you that want to join us as well. I feel like about passport in Japan, passport South Africa, passport in UK, passport in the Republic of Ireland, passport in Spain, so that we can be able to travel around without being identified as Nigerians. Ìdí táwa kan ṣe ló ń gba passport yẹn nìyẹn, so that when you go to that airport, rather than say you're a Nigerian, because the moment you give them a UK passport, a British passport, they won't be asking you where you're from again, because you have already nationalized yourself. But in reality, ó jẹ́ ká gba country tó ń pè ní Yorubaland, so that ká wá compete globally, economically, work with other countries, so that we can then have a solid passport, which would then determine who we are. You say, I am Olayomi Koiki, and you carry American passport, and because you are clear, what about àwọn èèyàn wa tó wà nílé, ní Ìjẹ̀bú-Òde, l'Ékìtì, ní Ọ̀ṣun, ní Kòròdú, ní Èbúté Mẹ́ta, ní Ọ̀ṣun, ní Ìlá-Ọ̀ràngún, ní Òṣogbo, ní Òkè Ògùn, ní Atan, ní Iléṣà, ní Oǹdó, ní Kogi, ní Kwara? Ǹjẹ́ à ń wà wọ́rí pé gbogbo wọn kọ́ ló máa ní access irú document táwa fi ń travel tó favour wa? So ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá tó wà lábroad ni mò ń bá sọ̀rọ̀ yìí o, torí pé ẹ̀yin lẹ́nu yín máa ń dùn jù. Ẹ̀yin gangan lẹ́ ń sọ fáwọn tó wà nílé pé kó fọkàn balẹ̀, bí àṣà Bọ́lá Tinubu, ẹ fọkàn balẹ̀. Ẹ̀yin gangan ni wàhálà, torí pé ẹ̀yin gangan lẹ́ ń endorse political parties. Ẹ̀yin mọ̀ pé ẹ̀yin ti ní access sí n tó lè jẹ́ kẹ́yìn lè move around fáwọn tó ti níwèé. Ìwọ tó tún wá níwèé gan, ṣó mọ̀ pé ó ṣì better off. Ìbéèrè wa ni pé in tí mo kọ̀ rọra ka díẹ̀, the snip díẹ̀, it shows that ilé ayé tá à ń rí lè ní, àwa gangan ni the pointer, àwa gangan ni the pointer. Nígbà tó bá dẹ̀ ti bojú wa báyìí tó ní má lajú o, bojú o olóró ń bọ̀ o, ṣé kì í ṣí, má ṣí o, tó bá ti ṣí báyìí gbogbo nǹkan ló máa rí o. Àwa wá fẹ́ ṣí ojú gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá kí a lè ríran, ká má lo glasses, kí ojú wa lè clear, because inú òkùnkùn paradà la wà. Àwa ń ṣàdúrà ní orí ilẹ̀ wa débi pé kúnkúṣí àdúrà yẹn ó yẹ kó transform sí wa lára. Àdúrà yẹn ò wá gbà, àwa ń deceive ara wa pẹ̀lú gbogbo ohun tí àwọn òyìnbó tí wọ́n gbà kúrò lọ́wọ́ wa. Kàkà kí a wá sáré nísìnyí ká tètè dá padà, kó má tún pẹ́ ju bó ṣe yẹ lọ, because a ti lose 100 years already látara pé wọ́n kó wa kúrò níbi tí a wà. Kò ṣe pé a kúrò lórí ilẹ̀ yẹn, àmọ́ wọ́n change structure tó jẹ́ tiwa gangan. Ẹ wá wo ìgbà táwọn èèyàn wa ti ń rìnrìn àjò, kí àwọn òyìnbó tó dé la ti ń ṣe business all over the world, nítorí pé àwa gangan ni ìran ọmọ aládé. Ìyẹn ni Yorùbá anthem yẹn ti sọ pé àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀. Àwa wá gbé ògo yẹn nísìnyí, àwa gbé kalẹ̀, àwa ń du ògo Nàìjíríà tí Lugadi tó ṣiṣẹ́ on behalf of the British Westminster Palace Parliament yẹn. Lugadi ni wọ́n ránṣẹ́ yẹn pé lọ síbẹ̀ yẹn a lè máa sanwó Northerner, nítorí pé ó jẹ́ ká jèrè lára wọn ni. Àwa ń pariwo Yorùbá nation, ọmọ Yorùbá tí wọ́n ń bi wá pé Yorùbá nation wọn lè ń fẹ́, a ti wà nínú Nàìjíríà, ẹjẹ́ àjọ wà níbẹ̀, ẹjẹ́ àjọ máa ṣe lọ níbẹ̀. Kábíyèsí Elédùmarè o, ọmọ ẹ lọ kàwé, ẹni tó bá ti kà ẹ lọ download ẹ. Ẹ má pè mí pé ẹ need the copy, ẹ̀yin ẹ ṣáà lọ sórí website wa koikimedia.com, kẹ lọ sórí Yorùbá document files, ẹ bá níbẹ̀. I still have few more, even if it's just this page nìkan la máa kà. Let's go back again. The heavenly began themselves. Okay, àti kàbẹ̀ yẹn. Ibẹ̀ là ń pè ní Ilé-Ifẹ̀ àti kàbẹ̀ yẹn. The place where all these began was named Ife. ẹ lọ sí palace bàbá wa Ọọ̀ni of Ifẹ̀ Ọ̀jájá the second àṣefìlà fún yín o a sì ń fi generator power palace ọba gẹ́gẹ́gẹ́gẹ́gẹ́ ọ̀tẹ̀ níbì kan jó nígbà kan wọ́n ní generator ló jó bẹ́ẹ̀ níbi tí orísun wa tó tọ́nu wà àbí Ilé Ifẹ̀ wọ́n fi generator ibo ni kò bá ní iná nílẹ̀ Yorùbá tó bá ń ṣe palace Ọọ̀ni of Ifẹ̀ àwa gbé òtítọ́ agbésẹ́gbẹ́ gbogbo wa ń lé in tí kò jẹ́ ká lé òyìnbó gba 25 years lọ́wọ́ tèmi èmi ọmọdún mélòó ló gbà lọ́wọ́ tiẹ̀ o 25 years ló ti gbà lọ́wọ́ mi because inú 25 years yẹn ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ló yẹ ká ti máa fi operate because bójú olóró ń bọ̀ má lajú ó Kóìkì má lajú ó kí a máa bọ̀ ní London eré yẹn làwọn àjọ ń sá nísìn pé ẹ má ẹ̀ka tó jẹ́ kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀ mọ́ ẹ jẹ́ àdá padà ká dá padà yẹn ni pé ká gba orísun wa padà àwọn kan tó wá fi ń ṣe lẹ́yàmẹ̀yà àwa ń dúró de ọdún mẹ́rin kọ́ fún wa ní lùbọ́ kọ́ fún wa ní gàrí kọ́ fún wa ní dis rice lẹ́ni nísìn 56,000 gàrí 25,000 àwa ń sọ fún ọmọ Yorùbá pé èyí tó lè jẹ́ ká rí ògo yẹn lò ò ní pé ká kọ́kọ́ mọ ta ni wá because àìtí mọ ìtajẹ́ because ìtajẹ́ nísìn ni pé a fẹ́ gba dọ́kúmẹ́ǹtì ìlú mi láti jẹ́ gbígbà tí a feel belong whereas ibi tó yẹ kí gbogbo wa máa feel belong sí òun nílẹ̀ Yorùbá kò díẹ̀ sí lọ́wọ́ ìtàǹgbé dání tá à ń sọ yìí kò sí kankan ṣe pẹ̀lú ẹ̀sìn má jàjẹ̀ ẹ̀sìn is your personal business pẹ̀lú Elédùmarè whichever one you believe in. Let's go further. 1603 we're almost there. Ànílè parí eléèlé ní continuity máa wáyé again. Our version of this mate supplies names to the heavenly beings that came down to establish life at Ife. The leader appointed by Olodumare to head the expedition was, according to this version, Obatala. Along the way, however, Obatala got drunk and fell into a stupor, and Oduduwa took over and completed the mission, and thus began the father of Yoruba people and all of the people of the world. This body of mate is very strongly held among the Yoruba people, and its influence pervades all areas of their culture. The historians who embarked on studying or writing about the very beginning of the history of the Yoruba as a people must start with an examination of this myth, M-Y-T-H-S, myth. The first Europeans to enter Yoruba land in the 19th century encounter it everywhere. For instance, the first Christian mission to visit Ife in the 1850 by David Indere was told after he had finished preaching the Christian gospel to a large crowd at the palace of Ife that all religion originated from Ife, and that what he had preached was no more than one of the versions that had evolved later in the distant part of the world, David Indra wrote. Ife is famous. Ife is famous as being the seat of idolatry. All the multiple idols of this part of the country are said to emanate from the town. From there, the sun and the moon rise. Òrùn àtòṣùpá, àwọn tó mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀. Tó bá dílẹ̀ bá ṣú, in táwọn kan wò nìyẹn. Òṣùpá àtòrùn. It is a strong thing for Yoruba people. But lẹ́ni, nígbà tá a ti sá kúrò lórí ilẹ̀ wa, ẹlòmíràn tẹ̀ mọ́mọ́. Àwọn tó dẹ̀ ní ìmọ̀ yẹn, wọ́n ń lò ó, wọ́n fi ń control àgbáyé. Àwa wá ń sáré, kọ́lọ̀ ń jẹ́ kọ́wọ́ wa tó. Ó wá dàbí ìgbà tẹ́ pé eré tá ń sá, wàhálà tó ń bẹ níwájú ọmọ Yorùbá nítorí pé ilẹ̀ tó jẹ́ kó ṣàǹfààní fún wa, wọ́n ti sọ di in tó ṣe tó wà against wa, and it's not meant to be. Gbogbo reason àwọn èèyàn ṣe gbọ́n Yorùbá nation, wọ́n ti ṣe tí kò ní jẹ́ wọ́n ní jẹ́ kó gbọ́ because tó bá ti lè gbọ́n tá à ń sọ tó mọ̀ pé the fact is pé àwa gangan ni ìran ọmọ aládé tá à ń sọ yìí wọ́n kàn ń gbọ́ ni but kò yé wọn wọ́n understand it because wọ́n ti ṣe reverse ẹ̀ fún wa and that is why tá a bá sọ Yorùbá nation ẹlòmíì akọ wá sínú comment section akọ sọ kábàkàbà máa lọ́ntì ẹ̀ because làákàyè ẹ̀ kò lè gbé ọ̀rọ̀ tá à ń sọ yìí làákàyè ẹ̀ ó ti wà depreciated ó ti affect medulla oblongata ẹ̀ kò lè ríran kò rí anything ìyẹn ló kàkà kó ìdẹ́ kó rí pé ìran yìí ń pa lọ ó ń parẹ́ lọ yìí ẹ já a pé padà a wá síbí báyìí nísìn kábàkàbà kóbokòbo ló ń sọ. Let's go further. arákùnrin yẹn sọ pé there the sun and the moon rises where they were buried in the ground and all people of this country even the white men spring from the town. In 1882, Reverend Samuel Johnson, an Anglican mission and son of the Yoruba freed slaves who had returned to Yorubaland from Sierra Leone, was told by the chiefs of the city of Ibadan that Ife was the place where all nations of the earth have sprung from. Ife ni gbogbo ibi tó ń pè ní àgbáyé ló ti jáde. Ìyẹn làwọn wá fi ń ṣe rakatia a fi ń ṣe ntí a rò pé kò value tá a bá wá ń sọ̀rọ̀ ìran wa ẹlòmíà tún máa ní ká gbé yẹn sílẹ̀ ká wá peace ní Nàìjíríà ṣe rí pé irú àwọn èèyàn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn làákàyè wọn ó difficult láti dá padà kò dẹ́ ń ṣẹjọ́ wọn. Bàbá Akintoye sọ fún wa pé marabot ó ń ṣiṣẹ́ lórí yín tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá mọ̀ ẹlòmíì kan lọ sílé ìjọsìn marabot gangan ló ń ṣiṣẹ́ lára yín because wọ́n ò gbọ́dọ̀ máa sọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá níbì kan tó bá tẹ̀ gbàbẹ̀ kọjá ó yẹ kó kọ́kọ́ gbọ́n tó ń sọ torí pé àwa gangan nìran ọmọ aládé. Nígbà tí Samuel Johnson padà dé ní 1882 láti Sierra Leone lágbà tí wọ́n ti fẹ́ gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹrú ó padà lọ sí ibi tó ń pè ní Ìbàdàn. That Ife was the place where all nations gbogbo nation tá à ń rí lẹ́mìí ní gbogbo àgbáyé Ife ló ti jáde but tá a bá sọ fún wa pé ibẹ̀ ló ti jáde òun ìbúwà máa sọ pé kò possible no problem. In 1886 British agent ẹgbẹ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn agent wọ́n sì ń lò dọ́là àti gba independent mama wonder pé ibo ló gbà sí. In 1886 British agents visiting the Yoruba interior were told by Aláàfin of Ọ̀yọ́ that the Ifes were the fathers of all and all people came from Ife. By the chiefs of Ife at Isoya where they and their people were camped outside the ruins of their city, that Ife people were the fathers of all tribes. And that if they continue longer in a camp and unable to resettle their ancient city of Ile-Ife, the whole world will spoil, as they were the priests of the deities who rule the world, and by the Saraki of Ijebu, Chief Ogunsigun, that even the English king can be shown the spot at Ile-Ife from where his ancestors went out. Henry Higgins, the leading British agent in this 1886 mission, sum up this information about Ife as follows. There are all manner of legends as to the wonders to be seen at Ile-Ife. The Ifes call themselves the conservation of the world and the oldest of mankind, and boast that all crown personages in the world, including the white man sovereign, went out originally from Ile-Ife. It was curious the difference with which other tribes treat them, although they are at war with them, and as everyone was supposed to be a descendant of Ifes, they look upon all strangers who visited their towns in the light of pilgrimage, who came, as they put it, to make their house good, that is to pay reversing to departed ancestors. To the historians discerning the meaning and implication of this might, myth is important. Of the implications, the most obvious would seem to be that the Yoruba people believe that they originated in their present homeland, have always lived there. Since, however, it is known from other evidence that the myth that the earliest ancestors of all the peoples of the West Africa came into that region from other parts of Africa, the Yoruba belief can only mean that Yoruba have lived so long in their present homeland that they can no longer remember originally coming into it from elsewhere. Indeed, available archaeological evidence strongly indicate that the Yoruba are one of the oldest peoples in the tropical forest of the West African region. As for the introduction of the names of Obatala and Oduduwa into this creation myth, there seems no doubt that what we have here is conflation of very ancient myths with later known facts at some point in Yoruba history. As we be seen in subsequent chapters, Obatala and Oduduwa were not mythically heavenly beings, they were humans who play very significant roles in a great era of Yoruba history. Without doubt, what happened was that the contemporaries or successors of Obatala and Oduduwa added these two names to myths that had existed probably very long before their time. In an attempt to accord Oduduwa in particular the very high position he deserved in the transformation of Yoruba civilization, the most significant era in the early Yoruba history. Furthermore, the myth appear to represent statement of a very important fact of Yoruba history, namely the existent penetration from quite early times of the Yoruba people, Yoruba culture into the lands of the non-Yoruba neighbors, and the considerable impact of Yoruba culture in much of the West Africa sub-region. More will be said on this subject of interfertilization of Yoruba and the neighboring cultures in subsequent chapter. Suffice it to say here that as far as is known, Yoruba culture exerted so much influence on and absorbed such input from so many neighbors, the Edo, relate peoples, the Aja, the Bariba, the Nupe, and drew so many too close to itself in family, structure, trade, practice, language, religion, political system, and traditions, that the Yoruba people have apparently came to perceive their country as a source of civilization. An evolved myth that gave meaning and support to the perception. It is significant that some of the neighbors of the Yoruba fact subscribe to the part of the Yoruba myth. The above then is the little that a study of Yoruba history can, as at this point in the task, descend from the people's powerful and influential myth of creation and of origins. From this myth of gods and heavenly beings, the historians for the reconstruction of the earliest beginnings of the Yoruba history must begin to look into the available evidence of the earliest activities of humans. Thankfully, there is a wealth of such historical data in the oral traditions, institutions, rituals, festival, folklore of the Yoruba people. Traditionally, Yoruba family structures, the monarchy and the chieftaincy system attach enormous importance from the early times to the preservation of traditions from the generation to generation, since title to political and other significant person, as well as to the land, was based to an extreme degree on. So we're going to leave it at page 19, which we're going to come back to as well later. So I'm going to note that so that when we come back, some other time, we will know that we read it up to page 19. So mo kí gbogbo wa lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí pé ìtàtí ń gbọ́ látẹ̀ǹkan òun náà ni ìtàn ilẹ̀ Yorùbá bó ti ṣe jẹ́, ibi tá a ṣẹ̀ sí, báwo la ṣe jẹ́, àwa wo ni wá, kì í ṣe Nigeria. Okay, all that we're Nigerians is a nonsense thing. We need to stop it now. But the only way we can stop it officially is when we come out of Nigeria and we start talking about àwa ni Yoruba country, we are Yoruba people. If we do not do that, we would all lose out in the long run. We are not here, to campaign against violence. We are here campaigning for the right of the Yoruba people out of Nigeria. This program does not support violence, but I can authoritatively say that we will use our mouth to enlighten and educate you, and it's entirely up to us to sink it in, and we can understand that if we do not, we will lose out in the future, that some of us will still be alive and some of us would have died in the process. As I say all the time, Awalomo Iromalade that is being held backwards. The Yoruba people are great people, welcoming people, people that have studied, people that have done trade. My mom, as user, as my own template, as my mentor, as my guide, she has been traveling prior before I was born in the 70s. My mom has been traveling 23 countries around the world. Today, every one of our mothers, our parents, are all stuck somewhere outside the offshore of Yoruba land, in America, in Canada, in Cuba, in Brazil, in West Indies, in Togo, in Ivory Coast, in Benin Republic, and àwọn tó dẹ̀ wà nílé, they've all been destroyed psychologically. It is a deliberate act to make sure that the Yoruba people do not succeed in this world. It is now entirely up to us, the new generation in this 21st century, with the amount of opportunity, with the latest technology that we are using to communicate, with the amount of resources in our hands. Nobody should be talking about saving Nigeria. There will not be peace in Nigeria until the Yoruba people exit and the rest of the other indigenous people. Let me remind us again, we are great people, we are sophisticated people, we are proud to be called Yorubas, and we will remain that. But if you think that you want to be a Nigerian and you still want to keep your Yoruba, Nigeria will override you one day and you will lose your Yorubaness in that Nigeria. Nigeria is a creation that started just less than 100 years ago. It is not older than this sculpture behind me. In turn, me, this beautiful sculpture is way 1,000 years older than Nigeria. The question that could be ni pé àwọn wo ló build ní jọ́nà lọ́hùn? Ṣé ẹranko ni wọ́n? Ṣé èèyàn ni wọ́n? Ṣàǹjọ̀nú ni wọ́n? They are Yoruba people like us tí ọba Elédùmarè fún ní làákàyè tí wọ́n fi design kan báyìí. So if you're saying that we should leave who we are and save Nigeria, then definitely you have a problem that we need to deal with. That is how far we can go this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us at this very beautiful program that says, and I quote, keeping our culture away from Nigeria. The time to protect our identity is now. Yoruba culture and language, no amount of election can protect Yoruba people. No amount of election by the corrupt system that some Yoruba politicians are using as an advantage. We must now say enough is enough. As I leave us again this afternoon, remember that you can follow us on all our platforms. Remember that you can be part of the program, and you can also support us with whatever you think is necessary so that we can be able to do more. We need a lot of resources so that we can do more, and we can also start moving from one place to the other, especially our team on the ground, so that they can visit places, they can bring things up to you, but without a very good resources, we will not be able to do so. In January, God's willing, we'll be doing a good fundraising, for our platform called Koiki Media in January. It could be probably towards the end of January or middle of January. So just take note of that. We will need a lot of resources to be able to continue to under the I got your stuff. Right there, let us make sure that as Yoruba people, let us stay, very strong. I love you all. We appreciate all our mothers. Once again, the 48 hours that we set for Oloye Igboho has finally closed. If anything comes in, please let us know that it's for Oloye. We will still send it to him. It's not a problem. We've sent all the donation that has been received by Koiki Media. We literally hit the target, just over 1 million. Just over. Thank you so much once again for everyone that contributed. And if you don't know, you can also click on our link where you can buy things from the Avon, you're just helping the platform as well. If you also want to help us, remember to love the program, share the program. We are doing a lot of short videos. We need now to use the remaining minute that I have. In your mail, subscribe to our backup channel called the WD76. If you haven't done so, let me know so that we can share it to you now. We need to hit 1,000 subscription before the end of December. I'm sure we can do so. I understand that many people do not know this channel. That is why you're finding it difficult each time. We are streaming on the WD. Until we get the 1,000 subscription, we will not stop streaming from it. When we have the 1,000, we might reduce the streaming from it and focus only on Koiki Media. But for now, we will continue to use the backup channel to remind you that we don't own Facebook, we don't own YouTube, we don't own Instagram. What was the name? We have been shadow banned. I didn't even know that before. It was one of my director that was saying, what is shadow banned, Wani? What does that mean? Each time Koiki Media goes live, you don't get the notification. So most importantly, if you're coming back again and you say, Koiki Mo Lori program, their notification bell here has been turned off. They can automatically turn it off from your end. Tell him, Mamo. Return it on so that you can be able to catch up. But from what I heard today, I mean, you learn every day. I've just been told that Koiki Media has been shadow banned. I know that we are not getting the traffic because there's a restriction. There's a lot of attack on us from Facebook. Facebook owns WhatsApp. They automatically owns Instagram, and you can see the link. With Twitter, we're not doing very bad. The message travels when I go on Twitter and I post, people can see it and they can retweet. But what we are getting here now is that most of the platforms you are not seeing us because they don't want you to see us. Especially the kind of what we are discussing here is not something that they want. So I'm sharing the link again, Tebatiri link here. Click on it. Let us go and register ourselves so that you can be able to follow us when we are live. We appreciate those of you that have joined us on the Twitter space. It's been a long time. We haven't got a backup extra mobile phone. That is why we've not been coming on the Twitter space, because sometimes we would love to catch up with you there as well. But for whatever reason, we've not been able to. I'm also posting it on our timeline on all our platforms. Tebatiri link here. We want to make sure that we have 1,000 subscription on the Facebook backup channel. And I'm sure we can do it if you really want to support it as well. Somebody say there's no audio. Definitely be a lot of doing it, because nobody have said that could see audio. Yoruba Lowomi TV, my brother all the way in Ijebu, thank you so much for being part of the program. And the rest of you, Akim Ayodele, Mr. Jide Ojo, thank you so much. Whoever says there was no audio, be a lot and sometimes your network might be playing off as well. So definitely it's not from my end. I would like to appreciate Mr. Kende Adeyemi, Mr. Tiami Lukman, 80. Thank you so much. You say my friend. Thank you so much. Yawa, hey, Wumi Praise. Shout out to you, my auntie. Thank you so much, Mr. Adewusi. And those of you on our other channel, let me quickly appreciate it before we go. Yawa Mudukwe Ola Belo. Thank you so much, Mr. Shudende Oluwatobi Ashabi. Thank you so much, Alaja Sharifa Agbabiaka. Thank you so much, Alaja Bangbala Yawa Busayo Abbas. Thank you so much. Triple DRS in Woolwich, thank you very much. Mr. Larry Lamino, it's been a while, Mr. Larry Lamino. I guess you're doing very well. Olamide Liu, Asha K TV show, thank you, my sister. Iyami Toyin Ola Oye, thank you so much. And I spoke to you, I guess, yesterday. Ganilo Yede, shout out to you. And also on our Mix LR, I say shout out to you, Ogumola Biodun. Money say, mo promise, Ajamalo Gegunfe, anytime I get to Nigeria. But I'm not coming to Nigeria anytime soon, because I've been told that it is not worth it coming to Nigeria because of the nature of what I'm doing. So I am also listening to that as well. I want to be a link and Lori TikTok. Okay, let's see if I can get the link quickly and bring it to you while we are still. I hope it doesn't break quickly. Let me quickly get the link out. Please help us so that we can do more. The best thing you can do for us is to follow the page back to back, So link yẹn máa wá nísìn bàbá wa ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ link yẹn. Okay, how do I post on there? I'm still very not okay. Comment. You know, this TikTok. Valo Joe, I think I just saw you now. I get a call from a message from one of the AAC as well. Demeji, thank you so much. A lot of people that follow Showore also knows that Yoruba Nation is the best option. Babawa Babatunde Olatunji say Yoruba has been spiritually captured by Fulani cow consumption. That is why most of us cannot face the reality of the fact that we are in a British company called Nigeria. Mukia Bisola Iwapelwewa, my beautiful sister, shout out to you. And likewise, Babawa Ganiu Iresi Agbaje was still Femi, all the way in Canada. Olokwe Mukia Kunle Bakers, easy. In Miami, shout out to you. And also Silver Badmos, thank you so much. We love you too as well. Alaja Olabisi Mufito Tawaki, Salam Alaikum. Alex Mamu, thank you so much. Iyawa Adeolojo, thank you so much. Sharp Boy, thank you so much. And also, we're still there as well. If I didn't mention your name, show, imagine you can go your country. Thank you so much, Babawa, all the way in Germany. Love you all. If I have the time, we might be back again tonight. If I don't come back, you know it is tomorrow lecture room. Rugi Giant, my brother, user 18. Kalima recognize me by the name. Thank you so much. You say kudos and well done. Thank you, every one of you. Whether you support Yoruba Nation or not, we still say thank you so much. Jamil, thank you so much. Chili Boss, Moki Bubu Alen Konse, Moki Prophetess, Ati Babawa Ku Ijo Fulani, thank you so much. And that's about it. I gotta go now. I appreciate everyone for the time spent again with me. It's always good when we have every one of you listening. And on that note, I say, Odabo. Bye for now. So play the anthem and then we can close the broadcast. I'm sure you'll catch up, Sonke, and thank you so much, Akin Games. Bye for now, everybody. Kunle Bakers, as usual, we love you, we appreciate you. Love you so much. Thank you so much.